Good evening and welcome to the 2013 State of the City Address. I'm Latricia Woods, Public Information Officer for the city, and I'm so happy to see you here and welcome you to Mayor Price's very first State of the City. We'd like to give a round of applause while you're clapping to the amazing Maricopa High School Chamber Orchestra that played during the reception. Were they not fantastic? If you need entertainment, they're very inexpensive. It only costs us 4 pizzas. Very good deal. Very good deal. And they were very excited. At this time, I would ask that you please stand as we have the City of Maricopa Police Department Honor Guard present the colors. Thank you. You may be seated. At this time, I would like to introduce some special guests that we have with us tonight, starting with the members of the Maricopa City Council, Mayor Christian Price, Council Member Marvin Brown, Council Member Peggy Chapados, and Councilwoman Julia Gussie. We also have with us former Mayor and Pinal County Supervisor Anthony Smith. We have City Manager Tricia Sorensen. And the Honorable Scott Sully, City Magistrate. We have former City Council members Dallas Paulson, in the back, Joe Estes, and Phyllis Baum-Fleckinger. And seated next to her is State Representative Steve Smith from our very own District 11. Our partners at the Maricopa Unified School District are here with us tonight, and we will start with Ms. Patty Cottray, School Board Vice President, Board Member Scott Bartle, and Superintendent Steve Chestnut. With us tonight is also the Pinal County Clerk of the Court, Chad Roche, And we have various members of our boards, committees, and commissions here with us tonight. So if you are a member of one of our citizen advisory boards, please stand. Thank you. It is now my honor to introduce the Mayor of Maricopa. Mayor Christian Price is in his first term as mayor and is the decennial mayor, having presided over the city's 10th anniversary activities. And was that not a great activity that we had last month? That was fantastic. A local businessman, Mayor Price is one of the community's strongest advocates. His participation in regional and national coalitions is helping Maricopa extend our reach and increase our awareness. He is the chairman of the Greater Phoenix Economic Council Ambassadors Group, a member of the Maricopa Association of Governments Economic Development Committee, as well as a member of the Community and Economic Development Committee for the National League of Cities, just to name a few of the organizations that he serves on. In his spare time, whenever that is, he is the husband of Cindy and the father of 7-year-old Cooper, 2.5-year-old Cassidy, and 10-month-old Calais. Ladies and gentlemen, Mayor Christian Price.
Thank you all very much for being here. Can you hear me okay? Probably not going to happen. Wanted to again thank you very much for being here this evening, and actually let me find a few fun little toys here. There we go. Really wanted to thank the Maricopa High School Chamber Orchestra for their performance tonight. They did a great job, as we said earlier, and I wanted to thank them for being here. But you know, today I wanted to take the opportunity to, of course, give you a State of the City address, but at the same time, take you back. And while we go backwards, I'd like you to start thinking about what you want to see when you go forward again. So first, the first 10 years of us being a city is what I like to call Act 1. Now, we're not going to belabor too much. Obviously, we've had a lot of interesting times in the past several weeks of going over some of the history of Maricopa. But I really wanted to give you the opportunity to see some of the things of what it is required for founding a city. I think that in this presentation tonight, I want to do a couple of things. First, I'd like it to be informative, but at the same time, I'd like it to be educational. I'm a person that likes to tell you and teach you and help you experience things, but I also want you to walk away with a keen understanding as to why and how we've come to be where we're at, and where, distinctly, it is that you want to be in 10 more years. So Act 1. Well, in 2003, we incorporated as a city, and here's a great picture of what we started to look like, with nothing but homes and dirt and farmland, and it was a great time for us. But at the same time, in 2004, we saw our first interim city hall. We saw a couple of interim city halls, and we've had the distinguishing pleasure to be here tonight in our new city hall. We saw the Bash's grand opening. Well, that was a big deal here. When people moved out here in 2003, they didn't have a place to go shopping. They had no place to get food. They had to go into Chandler or to Casa Grande. We also saw the first election. You see, that's really cool. See that line of people? That's what we want to see all the time at elections. You may not agree with me, but I do. I'd like to see that. I'd like to see more election participation. Well, that's a great thing. The other thing we saw in 2005 is the advent of an economic development department here in the city. We're going to talk a lot about economic development tonight. It's an area that I'm passionate about. It's something that I absolutely love. And I think that it's key and it's crucial for us as a city as we move forward to becoming everything we truly want to be. We had the Salsa Festival. Sorry, Vanessa. That's our city clerk over here. She doesn't want you to know that. But she is one of the very first employees, and so we really wanted to honor her on this tonight. So thank you. But this is the event of the Salsa Festival. I love to embarrass him when I can. I have to be up here. You have to suffer too. All right. So the Great American Barbecue is also one of our key events that happened, and it's our signature 4th of July. We saw the advent of 4 fire stations, a time in which most people didn't understand that if you're going to build a city, you got to be able to put out fires. But this is really important. If you'll look really closely at those trucks, one of the things that you probably will notice is they don't say City of Maricopa on it. Because at the time, we didn't have an official fire department. What we had was a volunteer fire department. And so this was the city and the volunteer fire department working together to bring something about that absolutely was destined in order for us to grow. Then we had Founders Day. We've renamed that now to Stagecoach Days, but it's in honor of our founding. It's always held around October, and it's usually within a week of when we incorporated as a city. We have the Holiday Home on Parade. Interestingly enough, this picture is of my neighbor's house. It was totally by accident. Didn't know that, and he actually won this one year. So that's a pretty fascinating thing, but I'm the house next to it that says ditto and points towards his. 2006, the advent of Pecana Park. What a great time in our history that we had the ability to bring a park online that without it, it's really adds to the quality of life. And this is something that people forget. As we move towards the coming online of Copper Sky, it's something that I almost see Pecana as being this little stepchild, but in reality, Pecana has been our lifeblood. And without it, we wouldn't be able to do half the things that we're able to accomplish as a city today. Then we see the second interim city hall. This is what we were in for many a years, as 2006, as 2013, and this was 24 trailers linked together and then hollowed out and then rebuilt inside. It was pretty impressive when you were inside it, but to see it from the air, it's really amazing that this is what carried us for the first several years. We had the governor's visit. I always like to point out in this slide that this must have been an important occasion in Maricopa's history because that's Mayor Kelly Anderson, and if you'll see, he's wearing a tie. That's a really, really big deal for Mayor Anderson. He's not here tonight, but I told him I was going to tell him that story. But at the end of the day, the fact that we had the governor come here was a really big deal, and so it's something that helped start us in what it means to reach out and bring those that it's certainly remember the state, but it's important to bring others to the city so that they can feel it, they can understand it, they can see our needs, they can see our wants, and they can understand our challenges. Here we have the CAC ribbon cutting event. Now, CAC, as you know, has a wonderful new campus just down the road here, but at the time, this was a really big deal. Something that we cannot have a higher quality of life if we don't have education. So this is an area that you'll see, and we'll talk later tonight about what it means to form partnerships. Then we have in 2007 our official police department. Before this time, we were using the sheriff's department out of Florence. Now, if you look at the 4,500 square miles that the sheriff's department has to cover, as a town that grows into 45,000, that's a really big deal. And so this was a monumental occasion for us as we formed our own police department. And this was very much thanks to the voters. We now have a fire department. You'll see the name on the side of it. It says City of Maricopa, something that didn't exist a few years earlier. There's Station 571 on Porter Road. That was our first actual fire station. Then you have, in 2008, something that I know members of Tony Smith in this room is very proud of. You have council's first strategic plan, and we're going to talk about that tonight. We're going to talk about the council's priorities and the city's priorities and how they align with your priorities. And everything that we need to do in the future, they need to coincide. We also hired an assistant city manager, which was the first time we had that. We had the MUSD facility sharing agreement so that we could work out the deals with fields and other facilities when, as a small town, you just don't have enough of everything you're hoping to have all at once. And so you have to get creative, another topic we're going to hit tonight. Then we see the advent of something called the Citizens Leadership Academy. This, if you haven't had the chance to take it, is a phenomenal experience. It's the ability for one to come and learn about how your city works. You learn about budgets and how things work, and things that you would never think of actually take place in that Leadership Academy. Then we see the Maricopa Public Library come on board. This was a monumental day because the day it opened, it was too small. And what we see is we see that from this library, and with the usage that we've had of 45,000 people moving here, this has become one of the busiest libraries in the entire county. So we're gonna point that out again here later on tonight as well. Walmart. Everybody loves a big box store. So when Walmart came around, it was great to have them and all that they provide in the way of jobs and capital to the city. Unfortunately, we have some sad things occur in the foundation of a city. Shane Figueroa, this bridge was named after him. He didn't work for the city, but his father does. And at the time, he was killed in the line of duty while in the Phoenix Police Department. And so this was our opportunity to honor him, and that's why we named it after him. In 2010, we bought the Estrella Gen property. This is really important, and we're going to come back and hit on this. But right now you see Fire Station 575 in this Estrella Gen property. But right to the south of that is something that's going to be absolutely crucial in this city's history over the next 10 years. And that's the new moving of the Amtrak station. Something, if you live on the south side of the tracks, like I do, are very excited about. And it can't get here soon enough. But we're working very closely in trying to make that happen. The Heritage District. This is a big deal as well. When you have a Heritage District, it offers a variety of tax incentives, but it also allowed us to provide ways in which we could help this area become a little bit more like the areas of the new city. Now, it's not to say that we are forgetting our past, and there are people that have lived here for a long time that predate most of us. But at the same time, we want to be able to pay homage to them and help them in ways that we probably wouldn't have been able to do had we not formed this actual district. The Cowtown relocation. There's a funny story here that there was a federal official recently out talking to a group of Pinal County elected officials and saying how he needed to meet the mayor of Cowtown because he thought it was an actual town, a location. Turns out that the reason it's called Cowtown is because there's more cows that resided there than people in the city of Maricopa. And so the name has stuck. And so Cowtown is along our Maricopa-Casa Grande Highway. As you head to Casa Grande, you see all the industrial areas. And this is an area that we want to focus on in the future from an industry perspective. We also see the starting of the DCR 347 grade overpass, this separation. I love it when people talk to me and say, well, why can't you just do it? It's so simple, it's so easy. And we're going to go into some elaborate detail on that tonight, but as it starts out, it's a very, very lengthy process, and it's rather difficult. There's a lot of moving parts, but it is absolutely one of our top priorities, and it is the key to us being able to grow, and I'll touch on that momentarily. Then we see the Maricopa, Arizona government website. Now, there was a website before, but this is the first time we'd migrated to the .gov, and so this has continued to evolve. Our media specialist, Ruben, actually created this, and he continues to make these websites better and better each and every year. We saw the purchase of the Copa Center, an area in which we could congregate and meet and have meetings. Many of the events that the city has held were there in the Copa Center for many years, and we continue to use it. It's also been a wonderful place for the seniors to meet, and so it's been very versatile, and we're happy to have it. We have a park and ride lot. I got a call from a young lady the other day that was rather upset that she had waited for 2 hours at the park and ride lot and the bus didn't come to pick her up. I had to apologize vehemently and say that our style of transportation has changed a little bit. And so you can still park there, you can still ride into town there, but there's not going to be a bus for you. That being said, we do have an intercity bus called the Comet, and that's our transportation or dial-a-ride. And that actually gets very, very good usage. So although it may not be what some people hope, which is a bus going into town, at the time we've tried it before. It doesn't mean we won't try it again, but we have to learn to evolve. And our evolution is always about trying things, and sometimes we win, but other times it is sometimes inevitable that we fail. And so we have to take those in stride, and we have to learn from them and add to them. We see the Let's Move Maricopa project. Councilwoman Gussie was a big proponent of that, and it's stuck around today, and I've had the opportunity to participate in that and get our kids out and become more healthy. Nixle Alert Services comes online. Shop Local Initiative, that's where we started it in 2012. We've revamped it recently. You've probably seen some of those things, the stickers on the businesses around town. And we've had many a times that we've had the ability to talk with people about how we're trying to make it a little more real for people. But this is a great start for us. The Realtor Media Tours. People today, there was one today, we're always doing our best to reach out and bring people to the city. There's no better way to help people understand our needs unless they come. And so that's one of the things we're always doing our best to reach out to. the facade improvement program. We see a before and after. Nothing against Tacos and More, because I think they did a great job of sprucing the place up from what it was prior to that. But they too have moved up and on. And we see Helen's here now. And Helen's has done a great job with using the facade improvement program available through the Heritage District funds that were made available because of different grants and the naming of the district in the first place. So it's a wonderful way to help things become more progressive. We also see Banner Health that came to us. This adds to our quality of life. Without good health services here, it's not something that we can accomplish. And then also, if any of you enjoy entertainment, and I'm one of them, the Ak-Chin Ultra Star Cinemas, although it doesn't reside in the city of Maricopa proper, it is absolutely one of our key partners, the Ak-Chin. And without them and without their regional mindset, I think that life today probably wouldn't be quite as happy as it possibly could be. So we offer many thanks to them. In 2013, we talked about CAC. You saw that slide earlier. It was in a little strip mall. Now they have a beautiful building. This is also thank you to each and every one of you. Because of you and because of your votes, you were able to make something happen, something that brings higher education to the city in a way that hadn't ever been here before. We also see Dignity Health Center. This is a big deal as well. Although they've opened an urgent care, they've also bought the property for a hospital here, and that sits right behind the CVS. Now, we all want that to open tomorrow, just like everybody else does, and that's not always feasible. But it is important to know that as they strive to make a good name for themselves, and they're doing a wonderful job of it, that they have the goal in mind to take Maricopa forward and help us and help themselves at the same time. We also saw an addition to the Lexington Park. This is in the Heritage District. In all of our time in Maricopa up to this point, we had never been able to go back and do something for that district. And so this was something, although it's a small pocket park, something that if many of you live in HOAs, you have that opportunity to visit on a regular basis. They didn't have that. And so we wanted to help provide for that. And then today, where you see us sitting now, which is this new City Hall. I keep telling people that we're trying to really use it up. We've had a meeting in here about every night this week, and if we can make it through this week, it's a good thing. But we really appreciate you coming, and we think that each and every thing that we have here adds and lends to our credibility. I can't tell you how many people that, from dignitaries to elected officials, that I've had brought to this building. I've given them the tour. I've taken the time to show them here. And it has changed the mindset of who Maricopa is on the outside. So often, people think of us as those trailers. They think of us as transient. They think of us as somebody that won't be here tomorrow. And I'll tell you, this footprint here is changing that mindset. And it absolutely awes and inspires. So now we get to enter the fun stuff, in my opinion, and that is Act 2. 10 years is maybe too short, maybe too long to have had as an act, but one of the things that I like to tell people is when you look at a multiple act play in a theater, there's an age-old saying that says, the second act is always the best. It allows for one to delve deeply into the meat of the story. Now, I want to preface this. I'm going to tell you that as we lay out some of the ideas and vision that your council has, as well as each of you as you start thinking about things, as well as some of the ideas that I have, some of Act 2 over the next 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, there's no definition as to how long this act might last. But I can tell you there will be some problematic times ahead. There will be some creative times ahead. Sometimes it will be hard, and sometimes it will be absolutely amazing. But all of this is truly, truly going to take focus. It's going to take desire, and it's going to take some really big dreams. So, as I told you earlier, from the strategic plan, the City of Maricopa has a set of guidelines that we utilize as we try and go forward on a day-to-day basis, as we set policy. And one of those guidelines is economic sustainability. Although I'm not going to elaborate terribly on each of them because they're fairly self-explanatory, it's not hard to figure out the value that comes from a city that is economically sustainable. One in which members of its city do not have to commute out on a congested roadway and therefore add to air pollution, add to problems and congestion, add to frustrations, and taking money out of our city. So this is a really big deal to us and something we want to hammer home tonight. We also want to talk about our quality of life. What does it mean? Why is it important to us? How do we better ourselves? Transportation. We have some real issues here. If any of you have ever come from the Chandler area, you all know that our major arterial roadway is, of course, the 347. And although there's history and historical nature behind that road, unfortunately, it becomes our only road. And it's very, very difficult for people when there's an accident on it. I know I have an office downtown, and that becomes problematic when the dust storms hit. So we need to look more into our transportation. Public safety. As we just showed you, the advent of fire and police coming on board, that was a really, really important day in our lives, and it continues to be such. So we'll talk more about that also. And then finally, quality municipal services. That's everything from permits to your fire department showing up to being able to get things done that you need done here in the city. So what I want you to do now is I want you to sit back for a second. Think about, where do you envision the city of Maricopa in 2023? It doesn't have to stop there. I mean, some of you might say, well, that's not long enough. I want to think about it in 2050. That's fine. But what I want you to start thinking about is, what does it mean to you when you think about a prosperous and successful Maricopa? So I want to take just a minute here and explain something to you. Many people don't know this. This is our general plan. And the general plan is important for a variety of reasons. It doesn't mean that's how big we are now. It means how big we can become. And so what typically cities do is they set up a boundary or a border. And this border, if you see in the dotted line here, goes like this. Over here to the north is the Gila River Indian community, as you all know, and you drive in on the 347. Okay? Here's the 238, which goes into the Maricopa-Casa Grande Highway. On this side, what you have is the planning area of Casa Grande. So we touch them. We go all the way down to the I-8, which is right here. And then over here, we border with Goodyear, the city of Goodyear. Most people think that because this is what we know as Maricopa today, that that's all we are. And of course, I don't want to leave out the Ak-Chin Indian community right here. This is a really, really important thing. I want you to keep this in your mind as you think about it. Because if you envision Maricopa becoming something great, then you have to understand that this can be 600, 700,000 people someday here. It's almost unrealistic. You almost are surprised that it can grow that big. But last night we had Mayor Scott Smith here. He's the president of the U.S. Conference of Mayors. And he told us that several years ago, Mesa was only 30, 40, 50,000. And now they're a community of pushing 340, 350,000 people. It's amazing the growth that we're seeing here in Arizona. And we're going to continue to see it here in the Maricopa area. So this is something that this is obviously a box, and we'll get more to that in just a second, but if you're going to think about the problems or where we stand now, you have to see the box, okay? So let's see if we click it there. There's our box, okay? I've always said that if you want to think outside the box, you have to define it first. You have to know where your parameters are. You have to know where you want to go and what's holding you up. But you have to take those challenges and you have to face them head on, and you have to overcome them. So let's talk about the box. We're going to take this and morph it into the big box store. I get these calls all the time, how I would love to see another big box store here. Well, I'm no different. I would as well. In fact, my wife's sitting in the front row, and I'm sure she'd love to see a Target or an IHOP, and we're going to talk more about those here shortly. But I too would love to see more big box stores. But one of the things you need to understand, that from an economic development standpoint, that we are on the precipice of a change, and that change is happening every day whether we know it or not. That change is coming because there are several reasons, but those reasons are there's an appetite for risk that is diminishing. Financing is disappearing. Okay? The ability and the technology is changing the way that stores want to do business. Let me give you an example. Recently, there was an announcement that Blockbuster has decided to close all of their remaining 300 national stores. Okay? Now, Blockbuster used to be one of the most powerful companies in the marketplace. They've decided to close because they've basically been put out of business by Netflix and Redbox. Therein lies the problem, is that if companies are not willing to adapt and to change, then this is what they look like. Big box stores today are changing. Now, before you think I'm going to say we're not going after any big box stores, I want you to know that's not true. However, I do want you to understand that when you think of the big box store, just because you envision a store being here on every corner that looks of that size and that nature, it doesn't mean it's going to happen. Because in the next decade, in the next century, we are seeing these stores, because of the internet, become smaller and smaller. They are becoming stores in which, instead of occupying 100,000 square feet, they occupy 5,000 square feet. And you go into that store, and there's one of everything, but afterwards, you walk over to the kiosk, you place your order, and it's drop shipped to the store or to your house. You don't walk out with it that day. That, when we talk to these big box stores every single day, is what they are telling us they are moving to. So, in some respects, it puts an additional challenge on us. In others, it actually gives us the opportunity to not have to reinvent ourselves, but to do it right the first time. And so it's a very unique opportunity. Now, of course, let's talk some of our challenges. Let's talk transportation. And in that transportation, we need to discuss the 347 overpass, the Union Pacific Railroad, and ultimately Amtrak. As I showed you earlier on that slide that showed the Estrella Gen property, it shows you where it's planning on moving to. But we have to understand, I get calls from people that say, well, I don't think we need an overpass, and others that say, we absolutely need it. I can tell you that right now we have double tracking that's gone through the city of Maricopa. And in the next several years, as the ports of Los Angeles and San Diego and Guaymas and Mexico get more and more busy, then one of the things that is going to occur is that they are going to continue to need to ship eastward. And as they do this shipping, they currently have right-of-way for 4 tracks. Now think about that for a moment. If 60 to 80 trains pass a day through here now, and you complete the double tracking, and that goes to 120, and they put in 3 tracks and 4 tracks, and it now is up to 200 trains, half of this city would be cut off. Remember that picture of the general plan that I showed you? This is the pinch point. This is the area in which, if we do not solve this problem, the city and its future cannot happen. We absolutely have to fix this. And we need to do it for more than just the fact that everybody is tired of sitting and waiting for a train, but we have to fix it because it's a public safety issue. We have policemen that can't get across in the case of emergency, or ambulances. We have people that have to sit at the Amtrak for 20, 30 minutes in the morning or in the afternoon, and they can't get to work, and it makes them late. I know, I experience this every day. And so it is something that we absolutely have to have. However, this is a $65 million project. There are air quality issues. There are dealing with ADOT, dealing with FHWA, the Federal Highway Administration. It is not just simply me waving my magic wand and saying, up here, please, overpass. Okay, I'm not Harry Potter. It doesn't work that way. I wish I was. But I have to tell you, it's for the first time in a long time, we are making real headway. Now, it does not mean that it happens tomorrow. But I fully anticipate that because the stars have aligned, we have a county supervisor who's a former mayor. I'm in the mayor position now, and then obviously we also have Kelly Anderson, who I showed earlier to you, is on the State Board of Transportation. And between the 3 of us, we are doing everything in our power to move funding forward for this project. It also behooves us and behooves each of you to know that the city of Maricopa has taken a tack that has moved us to the front of the line. And that tack is that early on, our councils had the wisdom to understand what it was to save money. Money was coming in the coffers left and right, and it was coming from the building of houses. But those houses are one time. And what happens is after that money is gone and spent, it doesn't come back. It's not like sales receipts that when you go back and shop repeatedly for food or electronics. And so it's a one-time deal. And so what our councils did is they took that money and they split it, and they took it half and half. And with that half, that money was set aside into what's called the Capital Improvement Project. And in the CIP, we have $8 million set aside for this project. This allowed us this year to go from something that was not even considered in the State Department of Transportation to be moved to the front of the line, and we are hoping that by June of this coming year, we will be in the Arizona State Transportation Improvement Plan called the TIP. And that TIP will allow us to now receive funding and therefore move towards the construction of this overpass. As you can see, the reason I'm telling you all this is that things like this take a long time. They don't happen overnight. But that is why we have to, as a city, envision what our future is going to hold for us. Because massive project like this cannot come to fruition 5 years, 10 years, 15 years from now if we don't take the stance of how important it is to move forward with things that seem so far out there and so visionary that people laugh at you sometimes. But that's how you get it done. The next one in transportation is our system of getting in and out. As we all know, we take the 347 up into Chandler or Phoenix, etc., and this becomes problematic in dust storms or if there's an accident. And so one of the things that has been studied and been studied for years is something called the East-West Corridor. And this is something that comes off the Hacienda framework study that takes the I-10 and links it to the city of Maricopa. Okay, this is, now you see it drop below, that is true, it doesn't go right to where Maricopa is on the map here, but again, we have to be thinking much like Mesa and Chandler and Scottsdale thought many years ago. Just to give you an example, the 101, the 202 that many of you use every day now, that was only a line on a map 20 years ago, and it was out in the middle of nowhere, and everybody laughed at them and said, that's silly. And now, each of those towns, each of those cities exist because of the ability to transport goods and services and people from a communication standpoint to and from point A to point B. We have to do the same thing. We have to continue to work with our leaders and our state representatives and ADOT to move these things forward so that we can be prepared for what's coming in the future. Sorry, that's my shameless plug. Just kidding. So one of the things I want to show you here is I-11. Many of you may or may not know about I-11. You may have heard about it. You may not have. I-11 will change the face of Maricopa forever. Let me explain why. This is, in its concept, is intended to be a communication, a transportation route between the only two major cities in the entire country that are not linked by a major freeway. That's Phoenix and Las Vegas. You have additional freeways you can get there by, but ultimately, it's not a direct route. And so it completely impedes our ability from a north-south standpoint to succeed. And so the future I-11 was recently approved through Congress. And as you can see this map here, this is the entire goal. See it going all the way to the ports in Guaymas down in Mexico, coming up through Arizona. Now there's some dissent as to which way it should go, but ultimately it goes into Canada. This is so crucial, so crucial. Most people think of when we do trade that we trade with China. It's true, we do trade with China. But do you know that our #1 trading partner is Mexico? In fact, over 3 to 1, we trade with Mexico more than we do with China. 3 to 1. Now, put that in terms of billions of dollars. That's a big, big number. And so we have got to move this forward. So I happen to sit on what is called the I-11 Coalition. I'm a board member, same with former Mayor Smith from Mesa, a whole host of other people that are very influential in the state, sit on this coalition so that we can make it happen. Now, I told you earlier that it's crucial. It's crucial because as this path comes up the I-10 and splits and goes up somewhere near the Casa Grande area, it will come right through the planning area of Maricopa and head off to our west. Remember how I told you in the general plan it meets up with Goodyear? This is absolutely, if it becomes reality, can be one of the single most defining events in this city's history. It is a must. We have to do all we can to make it happen. Therefore, we need a seat at the table. We need to be out there and talking about it and promoting it and helping people understand how crucial it is, because with an I-11 that trades with Mexico, you've all seen the freeways. You know what grows to them or around them. You know that it ups the value of the land. It is an absolutely integral part to this city's future. And finally, again, this is what has been approved through Congress right now. But I had the opportunity today to speak with Representative Kirkpatrick, Congresswoman Kirkpatrick, as well as Congressman Gosar. And they, in a bipartisan fashion, have started a I-11 coalition of House members in the U.S. House of Representatives. And they are now meeting. I had the opportunity to explain to her that we already had a coalition going and that they needed to come to our coalition, and they thought it was a great idea. So again, you have two separate entities working for the same purpose, but being able to deal on a national level as well as a local level. So, our challenges seem to continue. And this is one nobody likes to talk about. And that's floodplain issues. So let's go back in our history a little bit. This is a flood that happened in 1983. Well, the funny thing is it's considered a 100-year flood, which means that it's only supposed to happen every 100 years, right? Well, the problem with that is this is a flood that happened in 1992 here in Maricopa. And if you can see that, that's a raging river right through the middle of this city, okay? And now, in 1992, there were not anywhere near the amount of homes that lived here, that were here. And they are now. This is in 2006. So we have 100-year flood, 100-year flood, 50-year flood in the space of 20 years, okay? That's a big problem. And so we have to understand that if we are going to pole vault forward as a city, we have to solve these issues. But it is not as simple as throwing money at something and making it go away. So this was presented to council in our strategic plan here last Friday. What council had the opportunity of seeing was each of these colorations in different colors, blue, green, yellow, purple, again kind of a darker yellow and a light green up here. Those are all flooding potential areas in the city of Maricopa. This is the natural, here's our downtown, this is the natural growth towards Casa Grande first, but we're also going south as we get that overpass going. Okay? So I don't do this to air our dirty laundry, but what I want you to understand is that you cannot build a city, you cannot compete economically if you don't solve the problems. Okay? Let me give you an example. If I am a Best Buy and I want to come and I want to build right here in this corridor, this Cowtown corridor, and there's utilities there, and I have the ability to think that there's a lot of traffic coming by, it's great. I sit down and I do the numbers. And what I'm told is I have to bring my property out of the floodplain. In other words, I have to provide a floodplain solution. And so with that solution, I have to spend an extra $1 million to build my building and open my doors. Well, if I'm doing the number, that's right, if I'm doing the numbers, then what happens is I now have just put myself at a competitive disadvantage with the city of Chandler, the city of Mesa, the city of Phoenix. Because I can go and I can start up with equal amount of traffic going by, but not have to be 3 years behind the curve before I make a profit. And so these are some of the challenges that we face and something that we absolutely have to address. This again is the Santa Rosa levee. This is a really big deal. When you saw the flood in 1993, it's because this levee broke. And it looks like it's fairly solid. You have all these rocks and you have the mesh over it. But when you have that much water make a turn, it eats it away, and it eats away pretty quick. And so these are the solutions that we have to be attacking, and we have to be putting money towards, and we have to be putting capital towards if we want to fix this. So I'm going to talk to you here shortly about this Eastport, Maine. But before I get there, I want to tell you some ideals. Now, I didn't mean to leave you on a boring note or a sad note that we have all these problems and challenges. But what I wanted you to understand is that I think that challenges are put in our way so that we can overcome them. And I think that the way you overcome them is you start with an attitude change. Let me tell you a story. When I was growing up, I was a member of a search and rescue committee, and it was called the Civil Air Patrol. We were a volunteer organization of the Air Force, citizen auxiliary, if you will. And one of the things we were rewarded with as we put in our time and we did our drills and we helped people is we got to go flying. Now, I don't know about you, I love to fly. I love to be in the air, and I don't know too many young men that don't enjoy the same thing. But one of our mottos was this. It said, if you want to change your altitude, you must first change your attitude. So let me give you an example. Recently I heard a story on NPR, it's Marketplace, in a series they are called, that's called American Futures. And the focus is on different municipalities throughout the country. It's focused on their local economies throughout the different areas, and it's focused on how these different economies survive and thrive based in this post-Great Recession world we live in now. So I want to take you to a little town called Eastport, Maine, and although we're very different than Eastport, okay, it's obvious, we don't live in Maine, we live in Arizona, I get it, but I want you to start to sit back and draw some comparisons from this story. I want you to see what things are similar, what's different, and how a change of attitude can make a huge difference in our city.
This is Marketplace from APM. I'm Kai Risdall. I got an email from Jim Fallows the other day, his idea for the next installment of our series, American Futures. I've got the perfect place, he wrote, but you're going to have to travel a ways to get there.
Where we're going, we don't need roads.
Cirrus 435 Sierra Romeo, got Tango for landing.
Destination is at Eastport Echo Pop-Up Mike for 50 Romeo.
Jim, the national correspondent for The Atlantic, and his wife Deb are flying around the country in their own plane. 4 seats, 1 engine, a Cirrus SR-22 for the aviation-minded among you. They're stopping where they like, with us riding along every now and then, building a picture of what the American economy looks like. For us, today, the American economy looks a lot like this. We are in Eastport, Maine, population 1,331. A New England fishing village that's just about as far east as you can get in this country, or as Chris Gardner prefers to say,
we are standing at the deepest natural seaport in the continental United States of America.
Chris Gardner, shaved head, goatee, a body type usually referred to as fire plug, also a relentless advocate for this town and for the port that he's been in charge of the past 5 years. As he stands overlooking that enormous pier, he believes fundamentally that they can do anything here because that deep a port so far east means he can get bigger ships across the ocean faster, no matter what the cargo is. I'm going to let him tell the story.
Well, in 2010, I was sitting in my office, and my then general manager here at the port, Skip Rogers, called me and said, we just had a gentleman call, and he wants to ship cows out of Eastport. I said, okay, alive or dead? And he chuckled, and I said, don't act like that's not a serious question. What? He says, oh, they're alive. I said, okay, that's step one. I said, how are we going to ship them? They want to stuff them in boxes. Of course they do. They want to stuff live cows in boxes. And he said, and oh, by the way, they're pregnant. I said, of course they're pregnant. Of course they're pregnant. So they want to ship live, pregnant dairy cattle in boxes out of Eastport, Maine. He said, that's exactly the phone call that I just got. I said, okay. And he said, what do you want me to tell him? I said, tell him yes. And there was a pause. He said, what do you mean yes? He said, how can we say yes with there's permits, there's issues? I mean, cows in boxes, how do we? I said, Skip, you never lead with no. That crazy phone call that you just got, somebody else is going to get. That's going to be just as crazy to them as it is to us. But you call them back and tell them, not only can we want to. And as a result, we have parlayed that into almost 40,000 head of cattle exported here since 2010.
You never lead with no, Chris says. So in this tiny little town, a place where the economy's been lousy the past decade or so, there are now huge cargo ships with pregnant cows being shipped out to Turkey and wood pulp going to China. Eastport is so small that the lobster docks are just a 10-minute walk or so from the cargo pier, and late in the afternoon, boats are tied up there by the dozen.
Are you guys going out or coming in or standing around? What you doing?
Waiting for fuel.
Waiting for fuel. All right, come on. We're going to come down and say hi. First of all, do me a favor and introduce yourself. Tell me your name.
Jesse McPhail,
How old are you, Jesse?
33.
You been doing this your whole life?
For a while. First part of my years, I didn't really want to work with my father, so I tried a bunch of other stuff.
So how come you went into lobster and then finally?
Smartened up.
Tell me about that. You make a pretty good living?
Yep.
Give me a sense. Give me a dollar number.
Oh, I can't tell you that. You the IRS?
Are you comfortable?
I'm pretty comfortable.
How important is it to you that that Eastport sort of grows as a town, right? I mean, one of the things we're talking about here is that this town used to be down on its luck, right? And a bunch of people got together and said, in essence, we're not going to let that happen. Is that important to you?
Yeah, it's kind of good. Local.
It was all plywood.
Hang on a minute. Tell me your name.
Basil Pottle,
How old are you, Basil?
65.
Tell me about 10 years ago.
10 years ago, that whole front street right there was all plywood up. Every building. Half of them down on the other side was all plywood up. Today, every shop down there, somebody's in.
So what happened?
Oh, it's people come around and seeing that I think that could happen here. Like I own a campground, and I probably have anywhere between 300 to 400 people in the campground every day. They come in this town and go shopping. 10 years ago, there was nothing for them here to do. There wasn't even a restaurant here that sold lobster. So I had to start a restaurant so that they could eat a lobster.
That's so you fish, you have a restaurant, you run a campground. Seems like everybody here has like 6 jobs.
Yep, you got to have a job for every season.
One of the jobs a lot of these lobstermen have, no matter the season, is handling the cargo down at the pier. They get health insurance there, and benefits too. The trip from the warehouse down to the ship and the pier is short and steep. 5 bales go on a truck, and once every 90 seconds, 30 tons of paper gets lifted high off the ground and swung out into the hold. And up on the cargo deck, the Filipino navigator of this Norwegian-flagged ship that's taking chopped up American trees to China so that they can make paper and sell it back to us, watches with him.
Now what are you going to do? Because there's not enough space for a whole nother thing. So what are you going to do?
They're going to put one more.
You think it's going to fit?
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to fit.
One more.
All right, we're going to watch. Oh, no, it's going to fit. Oh.
You see?
He was right, of course. We spent all day up in Eastport running around with people who make their living on or near the water. People on the big cargo ships, people running little lobster boats, people who have 3 or 4 or 5 other jobs just to help them get by. And that, it turns out, is what this slice of the American economy looks like right now.
So, as I heard this story, I thought to myself, I'm going to call him up and have him come do the story on Maricopa next, and I may still do that. I haven't done it yet, but I was thinking that there's a few things that stuck out to me, and I wanted to hit those highlights. There's a fundamental belief that we can do anything here. You tell them yes. You never lead with no. Not only can we want to. Now let me draw the comparison even closer. Every time I say Eastport, I want you in the audience to substitute the word Maricopa, okay? So here we go. First off, Eastport used to be a city down on its luck. How important is it to you that you see Eastport grow as a city? But essentially, in Eastport, a bunch of people got together and said, we're not going to let that happen. I think that when we look at Maricopa, this is what we're looking at. It's a blank slate, okay? It's an open canvas. We can write anything we want to write on it. When you look out these doors and these windows here, there's nothing but farmland. And I love farms. I think they're great. But as it starts to evolve into a more urbanized city, which all farmlands eventually seem to do when they're near a city, at what point do we get to that area in which we can say, we can do anything we want, anything we imagine? So as we've looked at some of our challenges, I want you to think with me now what we need. And notice I say need. I'm not looking just to, do we need an IHOP or a Target? I've told you again, everyone will say yes. I'm one of those. I think we do too. But is that the only thing we need? Is that going to help us become successful? What is your definition of a successful Maricopa? And I guess I challenge you, can you think bigger than that? Can you think more long-term than that? What is it that's going to make Maricopa truly successful in your eyes? I'm not minimizing the IHOP. I'm not minimizing the Target. But it is only one piece of the puzzle, and it's the retail side. There is so much more to an economically viable city. We must be able to dream big while simultaneously working towards measurable stepping stones to progress, putting in place the ideas, the goals, and essentially the crucial building blocks to make these dreams a reality. So let's refocus our travels down this road and envisioning our future of Maricopa over the next 10 years. Let's start to dream a little bit bigger. Let's look at jobs and self-sustaining communities or from a self-sustaining position. What if we set our sights even higher with industries like emerging technologies, with renewable energies, with manufacturing and distribution, advanced business services? Now, obviously, we don't have a giant ocean sitting here staring us in the face as an asset to look at and say, well, gee, what are we going to do with this? I think you all in this room know that. If you don't, then I have some great beachfront property to sell you just east of this building, okay? But I think you know that, and that's a good thing. But we as a city, we have to get creative. We have to take stock of what we do have, and we have to start dreaming on how and what we do with those assets and what we can do to jumpstart the process so that others will follow. When we take stock of this, our biggest asset to the naked eye, it's easy to determine what we have. We have a seemingly unlimited amount of land, okay, and open space. We have huge amounts of room to grow. So what are we going to do to fill it? What are we going to put there? You know, the other day I was visiting one of our local schools, and I had a young man come up to me and shake my hand. He introduced himself, and he said, you know, Mayor Price, I just wanted to let you know that I am in a school curriculum that deals with something called Sim City. Now, if you don't know what Sim City is, it's basically where you get to play God or a bunch of city planners, whichever you prefer, and you get to say where each thing on this city is going to be. And it's all digital, and you place a factory there, and then you have people that work there. And it was funny because as you could see him kicking through his mind on what he had been doing over the course of that year, he clearly stopped and said to himself, Mayor Price, I'm really thankful for all the work you do, because it's really hard building a city. And it was funny because here's the reality check for somebody that's as young as 15 who knows how difficult it can be. So we need to get creative. And this is where I start to make suggestions, and I've done so with the council. One of the things we need to start to pursue is education and talent. Other cities have had success in attracting and partnering with higher learning educations. And one of these that we know of is the City of Phoenix. They've had the opportunity to partner with ASU in the downtown university area. Let me tell you a little story. In 2003, the mayor and the ASU president conceived of downtown ASU. In 2003. What's the year this year? 2013. Okay? So 2004, economist Elliot Pollock goes through an economic impact study, and he says that the downtown campus would ultimately create 7,700 jobs, and it would generate more than $500 million a year in spending and would provide $7 million a year to the city. That's pretty cool. So in 2006, the voters approve a bond election to secure funding for the campus, and in 2008, light rail comes along, because it's a great place to be with that many people in that ridership. In 2009, there's a $34 million park that opens jointly with the city and the university, allowing for specially sponsored events between the two of them. In 2011, they have 9,300 students there. And in 2013, new Student Resource Center opens, a residential tower, a new residential retail project to service the growing population. Did you see what one idea could do in a 10-year time frame? We also see the city of Mesa. They've had the ability to call themselves the next big boom town or college town. And the reason they're calling themselves that is they have attracted Albright College, Benedictine University, Westminster College, and Wilkes University. Now, you may have never heard of these colleges, but it doesn't stop them from being a four-year college or university that provide valuable talent to the workforce, and in so doing, creates jobs in an area that would not be the seedling for it if it wasn't there in the first place. We also see the city of Gilbert. You probably saw this announcement recently. They've recently announced St. Xavier University, in which they too are fulfilling the need with something they've never had before. But going back to those studies, they're not dumb. They know. They've seen those studies by Elliot Pollock. They know the benefits that can come from that. With all this, we need to focus maybe something a little more creative. It'd be great to go out there and attract some of these schools. Some of them have already been attracted somewhere else, and they're not looking to expand further. But something we might want to focus on is something like this, an engineering school. And you say to me, well, why would I want to do that? Well, it's really important, because over the next 10 to 15 years, those are the percentages in each one of those categories of engineers that will be retiring from the industry. Okay? It is almost 50% of all engineers will be retiring. 50%. The entire countrywide. These jobs pay, on average, over $100,000 a year. They bring in resources. They bring in technology. Why are we not going out there and attracting them? Why are we not seeking after them? Well, maybe we need to. But it's not the only way to find jobs. We have done as a council this year, we've instituted something called the Maricopa Center for Entrepreneurship. Now, if you don't know what this is, it's in short called a business incubator. We believe that if we're not going to wait around for someone to come to us, we're going to grow our own. Just like a good farmer does, we're going to plant the seed, and we're together going to work towards a partnership in which we grow our own high-tech businesses. Now, it can start out from a variety of different ways. Business incubators take people who are good at what they do, and it leads them through the difficult process of being a business owner. And it takes them to the next level, and it puts them out there, and it makes them successful. And sometimes those business incubators even tell you when you need to get out of your own way, because you can go from a $2 million a year business to a $30 million a year business, if that's what you want to do. I wanted to add one more thing on the economic draw for universities. I wanted to read something from expert Richard Florida. He argues persuasively that universities lend economic and cultural dimension to cities. Thus, the establishment of campus of a major university in the heart of the emerging metropolitan region known as the Sun Corridor, which we are in. Okay, now he's commenting on Phoenix here. But he says it provides an unparalleled opportunity for the city to reinvent itself, or in our case, invent itself. He goes on to say, creativity in the classroom, laboratory, or studio necessarily engenders entrepreneurial behaviors in the form of take-charge employees, expanded markets, and even entirely new industrial sectors. For example, an estimated 6,900 MIT, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, alumni companies are headquartered in Massachusetts. Now, it's true, they have several years on us, but the estimated sales of these companies in Massachusetts alone are $164 billion, which represents 26% of the entire Massachusetts economy. Okay? That is the type of dimension that we are talking about if we want to dream big here in Maricopa. So as we take and we follow this, I want to introduce another idea to you. It's something I like to call the 238 Tech Corridor. Now, I know there's challenges and I know there's problems, but one of the things that we've got to focus on is that as we look to our neighbors, where do we see the Tech Corridor now? We see it in Chandler, right? And as we look to Chandler, what do we see? We see Intel and ASML and Google and Amazon. We see all these great businesses there. Well, remember, Chandler was a little town at the end of a dusty road way out in the middle of nowhere 20 to 25 years ago. Now, one of the things that Chandler is experiencing is they're starting to run out of room. They are hitting their borders, and they have no place left to grow. Now, there's still some areas, but from an industrial standpoint, they're running out of room. So if you were a tech company or a business looking to say, remember I did the numbers earlier for you on having to build a floodplain solution? If you have to build up, building up is more expensive than building out. So why would we not be the logical next step to being the overflow tech corridor or the next tech corridor of Arizona? We stand to profit. Now, I'm not looking for table scraps, but we stand to profit if we start now thinking about what it would mean to be the next tech corridor, and we have the ability to do it. We have lots of space. We have lots of companies that are looking to relocate. I want to give you an idea. People say all the time, well, how's that going to happen? I mean, no one's just going to come and start there. Well, sometimes they do, and sometimes it's how you get them here. One of the memberships that we pertain to is GPEC, which is called the Greater Phoenix Economic Council. And in that, we are constantly trying to promote the Phoenix region. When we promote the Phoenix region, there are two strategies that we use. We use the China strategy for the sheer volume and the amount of trade that we do with them. And we also do another strategy called the California 100, which is with the new advent of the taxation laws in California, companies, especially high-tech companies, are fleeing in massive amounts. And they're doing so because they don't want to pay the taxes. And so they are going to our competitors, to San Antonio, to Austin, to Salt Lake, to Oregon. And so we have to do a better job as the Phoenix area, and especially Maricopa, in attracting them here so that they can come here, understand what we have to offer. So, what I want to read to you now, and this might be a little long, so I apologize, but again, take a second, close your eyes if you have to, don't fall asleep on me, and for just a minute, think of the similarities. I am going to read to you a little bit from a letter that went to our shareholders, or not my shareholders, shareholders of this company, okay, in 1997, so 16 years ago. And it says this. listen for similarities. Listen for things you would want, things you want to see. This company passed many milestones in 1997. By year end, we had served more than 1.5 million customers, yielding an 838% revenue growth to $147 million, and extended our market leadership despite aggressive competitive entry. Our goal is to quickly move to solidify and extend our current position while we begin to pursue commerce opportunities in other areas. We see substantial opportunity in the large markets we are targeting, and this strategy is not without risk. It requires serious investment and crisp execution against established franchise leaders. It's all about the long term. Market leadership can translate directly to higher revenues, higher profitability, greater capital velocity, and corresponding stronger returns on invested capital. Are we hearing any similarities here? Our decisions have consistently reflected this focus. We first measure ourselves in terms of the metrics most indicative of our market leadership: customer and revenue growth, the degree to which our customers continue to purchase from us on a repeat basis, and the strength of our brand. We have invested and will continue to aggressively expand and leverage our customer base and our brand and our infrastructure to move to establish an enduring franchise. Because of our emphasis on the long term, we may make decisions and weigh trade-offs differently than some companies. Accordingly, we want to share with you our fundamental management and decision-making approaches. And it's going to go through and list some. We will continue to focus relentlessly on our customers. We will continue to make investment decisions in light of long-term market leadership considerations rather than short-term profitability considerations or short-term Wall Street reactions. We will continue to measure our programs and effectiveness of our investments analytically to jettison those that do not provide acceptable returns and to step up our investments in those that work best. We will continue to learn from both our successes and our failures. We will make bold rather than timid investment decisions where we see a sufficient probability of gaining market leadership or advantages. Some of these investments will pay off, others will not. And we will have learned another valuable lesson in either case. We will work hard to spend wisely and maintain our lean culture. We understand the importance of continually reinforcing a cost-conscious culture. We aren't so bold as to claim that the above is the right investment philosophy, but it's ours. And we would be remiss if we weren't clear in the approach we have taken and will continue to take. Anyone have a venture guess on what this company is? It's Amazon.com. Do you know what they did last year in 2012? $61.9 billion from 147 and 16 years earlier. Now that's growth. We've experienced high growth. We know what this is like. We can handle this. We can do this. I'm not suggesting that we would be so lucky as to land a future Amazon on our first shoot out the gate as we attract a university, or we grow it through the MCE. But what I can guarantee is the eventual result, that if we do not move in this direction and we do nothing, we will gain nothing. That is a guarantee. Today I had the opportunity of going to Phoenix Mart. Some of you were there, some of you had the opportunity to be there as well. Most of you probably don't even know what this is. But this is like, just to give you a quick example, it's like a giant swap meet. It's like a huge bazaar, but instead of it being kind of crazy, it is actually people that pay for booths, and they go in there and they sell every spatula known to man in one booth, in every color and every size and every variation. And they do this all the way down the line. And it's going to be over 1 million square feet of retail business. There are only 3 of them like it in the world. One of them is in China, one's in Dubai, and the other is here in Casa Grande. These were some pictures from it today. As you see the chairs out in the middle, it's not because nobody was there. All the dignitaries were up and about at the moment. There were several hundred people there. On the left-hand side, you see the cornerstone, and on the lower right-hand side, you see the 9,000 jobs that it's anticipated to create initially. Now again, let's go back to the big picture. We're talking about engineering schools. We're talking about international trade. We're talking about transportation corridors with I-11. Why on earth would we not be more involved in something like this? It's not here. It's not in Maricopa. but it's right down the road. And guess what comes from it? If you are looking to staff a hotel, if you're looking to buy every piece of furniture in a hotel, then you don't have to go to 12 different places around the world. You can go to Phoenix Mart and you can find every spatula and every lampshade and every fork and every napkin and every bed sheet that you've ever imagined in one single place. What comes from that? Aside from just people coming and going, you now have a place of international trade that has put Pinal County on the map. And it's something that we need to focus on. And we need to take big steps and advantages towards so that we can utilize that international business flair. And finally, I want to talk here about the deal closing fund. We want to move forward and be the first city in the county of Pinal to have a deal closing fund. Now, deal closing funds can get tricky, and there are metrics and advantages and disadvantages to them, and the city government is not in the job of picking winners and losers. That's not what we do. However, sometimes it's about having an extra arrow in your quiver. Sometimes it's about staying at the table a little bit longer and not getting put in the trash can. And that's the idea behind having a deal closing fund. We want to pioneer this in Pinal County. Now, again, I told you that the City of Maricopa is not in the business of deciding who is going to come to a given location. Sometimes people think that's our job, is that well, you're not doing anything. You didn't bring this store here. Well, that's not our job. But it is our job to do whatever we can to help assist, i.e. the deal closing fund, and i.e. some of the other lands that exist. If you see this picture here, you'll see that right up here at the top is City Hall and the police station. Right there. Okay? These two buildings. That's all that exists out of all this land that the city owns around it. Okay? It is intended to be a master planned area. Now, it might take a variety of different shapes over the coming years. But the idea is if you plant the seed, other things will grow around it. You now have 200 people out here. You guys all come out here on a regular basis for the variety of different meetings we've had out here this week. Something you maybe never did before because you didn't live out this way. Okay? That's the nature of a changing demographic, is that allows for the passage of vehicles down a road to increase transportation and i.e. business needs, and that's when the seeds take hold. We're also doing our best with the Estrella Gin property. Again, another master planned area. Carry light retail, maybe light industrial. We see the fire station there. We also know the Amtrak station will be moving there. So again, something else we're trying to do our best to help out with. Copper Sky. This is also not something that is new to anybody, but this acreage right here and right here are designed for commercial. Now, I'm sorry, but if I were a Big Five, I would think that being across from a 140-acre park might be a darn good investment, okay? And so, again, the idea is how do you mix the things that the voters have given you and what you have the ability to do without crossing the line and still allowing for things to come in of their own accord, okay? Cowtown, an industrial corridor. We mentioned that earlier. Remember, it was in yellow earlier? Kind of down this way, along Highway 238, or as we know it, Maricopa-Casa Grande Highway. There were many cows that lived there. It's not the most ideal place immediately, but parks all over the country have been built upon, age-old dumps. And so it's something that can be revitalized and fixed. And as we see and we drag infrastructure there, this could be a very unique industrial corridor between us and Casa Grande. And as you drive down the Casa Grande area, you see Abbott Labs and Frito-Lay. These are the things that we need to start doing our best to get in place. But it's going to take time. It's going to take money. It's going to take willpower to do that over something that you can see immediately. Okay? It's a tough business. So I wanted to quickly hit on some potential opportunities. I'm not going to elaborate too much on them, but the first one is the energy sector. You know, when I look at the energy sector today, it's something very interesting to me. I just wanted to read you something really quickly. It says, over the next couple of decades, the U.S. energy industry will drive employment gains, the reindustrialization of the economy, the migration of workers and income growth. The economic impact of surging natural gas and shale oil production will not only be felt by those directly in the energy industry, but the numerous sectors that support it. And I thought it was interesting to follow on with that today, 1 in 4 of all jobs that are created by the energy boom take place in a state that is not seeing any new drilling. So for the environmentalist out there that says, well, I don't want to drill, well, we don't have to. There are all kinds of ways in which we can take advantage of a new technologically advanced burgeoning energy sector. And I think that if you look at our assets, again, several hundred days a year of sunshine, we know that solar is a big deal. We see it. We know that right outside near Gila Bend is the Abengoa solar plant. If you've been on your way to Yuma, you've seen it. It's massive. Okay. You also see the new proposed Marisol Energy that's both are technically in Maricopa County, which is a shame on our side. Okay. But the idea is they're close. They can feed off each other. We can draw those back in. It's going to be hard. It's going to be tough. The infrastructure is not there yet, but it's something we need to work towards. I also wanted to talk about natural gas. That's another area. With the advent of natural gas becoming more and more prevalent, there's a major pipeline that runs right through the city of Maricopa. It doesn't mean we have to drill for it, but maybe we need to take the time to figure out we produce it or we sell it, or excuse me, not produce it, we use it as an economic driver, we refine it, we distribute it, we sell it, or some other iteration of the capitalization of such. Something we need to be prepared for is the return to growth. Our housing prices are up 44%. Okay? We see, and if we listen to Elliot Pollock, who's been very right many a times, not always, but many times, Elliot Pollock is predicting that we will see a return to several hundred housing permits a month here in the very short next couple of years. Could be as early as 2014, 2015 in the city of Maricopa. That's going to drive a whole host of additional needs. We want to go out for another census, okay? We did this early on in our existence. In the development industry, there's a very magical number of 50,000 people. We think we're there or we're close to there. And so if we do a mid-decennial census, then if we can achieve that number, it gives us one more feather in our cap when we go out and sell our position as the city of Maricopa to entice people to come here. We want to focus on a police substation, okay? We don't have any police presence south of the tracks right now. If you looked at the Copper Sky picture that I put up there, there was a corner lot that we don't own, and there was a little sliver at the very top. That little sliver is a piece that we do own. And we think that that would be the perfect place for a police substation, okay? So we're going to continue to investigate that. The main public library. We have a library now, don't we? But as I said earlier, it's already too small. And so as we get through the process, we have bond payments that we have to make as a city. So it's not something we can do immediately, nor should we. However, it is something that we know the constituency wants, and I think this city is asking for. And so, but we also have to understand that technology there too is changing. It's not about having a facility of 50,000 square feet for nothing but books. Sometimes it's about half of that for books, and the other half is for computers and digital books and CDs and all types of other types of media. Public safety. As we grow, as we add more people to this city, we will absolutely have to add to our public safety. Police and fire, we will need to add more because it's just a matter of having the additional response teams. We'll need to move towards our own city dispatch, okay? Something that we don't have now. We partner with others, and it's done a phenomenal thing and been a great value to us, but it is not something that is sustainable long term as we grow. We will also want more parks, more recreation spaces, trails. On the general plan, we have a lot of those out there, but they are conceptual at the moment. And I know that as we talk about the formation of fixing these washes and levees and culverts, that one of the things that we want to do is we want to put in those trails. We see that in North Scottsdale, where the washes are dry almost all the time, and they have all sorts of trails for people to go through and to utilize and to recreate in. That is something else that the future of the city holds. And then, of course, retail establishments. I never want anyone to think that in dealing with the challenges that we ever lose focus of what the quality of life short-term is as well. You have to run two parallel tracks. You have to solve long-term issues. You have to work towards fixing the problems. But at the same time, you have to bring in the little things that help keep people here, that help energize them. And all of those things working together is how we move forward in the next 10 years. Also, we have partnerships available to us. Partnerships are crucial. You know, what are partnerships? Partnerships are relationships. They translate into marketing. Marketing then translates into generating ideas, and those ideas get turned into businesses and successes and overall regional prosperity. There are many types of partnerships, and one of the primary ones is called a P3. Ak-Chin is a classic example of a participant in the P3s. P3 stand for public-private partnerships, meaning that not any one person takes on all of the risk, but it's shared. Excuse me, apologize, we moved backwards there. Maricopa Unified School District is another, and I'll give you guys examples here in just a second. Gila River is also, as well as Central Arizona College. Now, I think Central Arizona College is a great example because that college that we see down the road that's here today, it didn't just happen because the voters said it had to happen. It happened because the land that was next to it wasn't contiguous. It was owned by different people. And so if they hadn't gotten together, if Ak-Chin, if Eldorado Holdings, if the City of Maricopa, if CAC, if all of them had not come together and said, this is complex, this is challenging, but we're going to find a way to make it work, if it had not happened, that building you see today and the improvement of the quality of life here in Maricopa would not have been able to move forward. So P3s are the wave of the future. It is not about any one entity taking on all the risk or doing everything. It's about doing it together. And that's why partnerships are so crucial and so important. But it can't just be with those here within our own venue. We have to reach outside. We have to get out of our comfort zone. We have to go and set anchors in areas that are outside of our city limits. And one of the ways we do that is with GPEC. Okay? As I said earlier, I sit on the, I've been made the chair of the GPEC Ambassadors Program. That's an amazing thing. Now, it's not about me. It's about the City of Maricopa. It's about who now is represented. I wanted to give you a quick stat. I've told you, many of you this before, but in that stat, that Goodyear used to hold that position as the chair of the Economic Council Ambassador Program. Almost 1,200 people belong to that. It's CEOs, it's businesses, it's law firms, it's people from all over the valley, very influential with huge networks. And 60 to 80% of all new businesses that located to Goodyear, while Mayor Lord was the chairman of that, happened because they knew her through the chairmanship. It is those types of relationships that we make when we look outside of our own that bring and help put a name to a face. It's getting you off of a list. It's getting you off of something that is just a line item on a spreadsheet, but rather moves you to the top of the list when you get people here. Okay? The Lower Santa Cruz Wash Solution, the I-11 Coalition, ADOT, U.S. Department of Transportation, CAG, which is a transportation organization that we belong to, Central Arizona Association of Governments, the National League of Cities, Arizona League of Cities and Towns. We also should have MAG on there, which is the Maricopa Association of Governments, up in the corner. All of these people are people that we have to work with on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. And if we don't do it, then we have all sorts of things fall through the cracks. Cindy, this is why I'm not home very often, is because I go to all of those meetings just about every week. So sorry about that. These are the partnerships that we need to foster and that we need to look towards. We've always had a can-do attitude here. There is a desire to overcome and the will to succeed despite our challenges. We've seen this over and over again here in Maricopa. And we look at the hosts of good people that volunteer their time and serve in some capacity that needs to be filled. The desire to help others. We have police volunteers and fire volunteers and library volunteers, historical society, City of Maricopa boards and commissions and committees, food bank volunteers, et cetera, et cetera. This city cannot go round with the amount of staff that we have without those volunteers. But there's always more we can do. I asked you earlier how important it was for you to see Maricopa grow as a city. For most of you, I believe the answer is yes. So I ask something of you now. If we want to start accomplishing these dreams, we are going to have a larger army. We're going to have more people enlisted in the fight. So tonight, I would like to roll out something for each of you to start considering and potentially enlist your own help. What I would like to do tonight is ask you to join a new program called the Maricopa Advocates Program, or MAP. We talk all the time about what it means to put us on the map. This is a diverse group of passionate individuals who are interested in learning about and advancing economic development by promoting Maricopa as a destination choice for business investment. The Maricopa Advocate Program is this. People might say, well, who are they? What are they doing? Well, it's simple. They're first small business owners. It's technology. It's the idea that you want to have more technology. It's people that want to be involved in education or currently are. It's developers. It's manufacturers. It's healthcare. It's all these sectors and industries working together to accomplish this. community leaders at the center of making Maricopa what you want it to be. So what is this MAP program? What is its purpose? Well, that too is simple. It's to first engage. You have to know what's going on here if you want to be a voice for its success. You have to get educated in that. And then, thus, you are empowered. If you are engaged and educated and empowered as a Maricopa advocate, it is what is going to move the city forward. It takes a new level to discussions. I can't tell you how many times I sit in my office or I'm out and about and I talk to people and they say, well, what are you doing about X? Well, I love telling people what we're doing about X. But what I would love for them to know is rather than me trying to inform 45,000 people, I'd rather like to tell 3, and those 3 tell 3. Sounds like a pyramid scheme, doesn't it? But it's actually an education in which they are participating directly because they want to in the city and learning things that they couldn't learn otherwise. I want them to learn about site selectors, state and local taxation issues, why that affects us, how it hurts our competitiveness or helps, business inquiries. Everybody wants to know who's looking at us, when are they looking at us, and there's obviously limitations to that, but we can tell certain things. It is true that XYZ company has looked at us. They've looked at us several times. We talk with them every day, but here's our challenges. Okay? And I want them to know about the potential incentives that they qualify for. Okay? This is truly an arsenal in the Advocate program, and they gain knowledge and information about local economic development efforts, what the city is doing. It also helps to impassion them and inspire those around you. Because I'll tell you, if you change your attitude, if you change your mindset of where we can be, where we can become, then ultimately nothing can stand in our way. There are huge benefits to the city in doing this. It gets people understanding the strategic plan, something that I laid out for you a little bit tonight. Okay? It gives you the current and future projects underway. It's what everybody here wants to know. What is the city doing? Where are we going? Okay? And if they don't come to council meetings and watch it, well, now they can participate directly with the economic development community, and that is our own economic development team. It also can help drive economic growth to the city. I cannot tell you, and you guys all know this, of different times that you've been out and about in your lives where because you have said something, it has made a trigger happen. Okay, I think that there's a great story in that Mayor Smith was here last night, and he said that he was trying to get a meeting with the EPA to talk about issues that were important to Arizona. And as hard as he tried and as important as he is, he couldn't do it. So it turns out that one of his assistants at the U.S. Conference of Mayors was best friends with an executive assistant over at the EPA. And because of that, he had the two assistants talk. Next day, they had a meeting. When they couldn't face-to-face, they couldn't make it happen. Sometimes it's about looking around the problem. It's thinking outside the box that makes things happen. Now, I know that we are at a marvelous crossroads, and we are at such being 10 years old. We have the distinct privilege and honor of looking backwards from day one and the foundation of our great city. But we can see where we've come from. We can see where we're moving towards. We can see what we've done right, what we've done wrong. Moving forward, we can also have the freedom to invent ourselves, as I said before. We don't have to go through the process of reinventing ourselves. We can do it right the first time. I can tell you now the next 10 years is not going to be easy. It's going to be tough. It's going to be hard, and there's going to be trials. We're going to have successes and setbacks. We're going to have trials and victories. But indeed, we will have to set our sights high, and we'll have to maintain a laser-like focus if we want to achieve the sheer desire that sometimes it will take for us to accomplish such lofty goals as we've laid out tonight. I also know, and I can say without any hesitancy, that this transformation and invention of ourselves cannot be done alone. It cannot be done by only a select few. It will literally take an entire community working together to make it happen. And we are going to need your help to do it. I hope you will each catch the vision of our bright future, and that you will do your part to help us move the city of Maricopa forward as quickly as we possibly can. You know, perhaps I'm a little romantic, and just like the dock worker in a little town called Eastport, Maine, with 1,300 people, that is actively transforming their lives in their town. But I also think that although we may be across the country from one another, I believe we hold the very same fundamental belief. And that belief is that we are in it for the long term. And that for as complex as some of the challenges we face are, simply put, we can do anything here in Maricopa. We just have to put our minds to it. Thank you for coming.
Work to do now, don't we? Yes. I want to thank you again for being here tonight. The State of the City Address will be rebroadcast on Maricopa 20 and the city's YouTube channel, Maricopa 20. So please check the city's website for when those rebroadcasts will air. But let's give another round of applause to Mayor Christian Price for his dynamic, very first State of the City Address. I don't know what you're going to do next year, but we have a little time to plan. Also, I know that each of you are racking up your shop local receipts as we speak to help bail out our very own Chief Stahl, who is being detained in City Hall right now. That's why he's here, because he can't leave. So he needs you to help him raise his $100,000 in bail between now and November 19th. And you can upload your receipts to the shoplocal.maricopa-az.gov website or join us on November 19th, either here or Bashas', Walmart, Fry's, or Ace Hardware to turn in your receipts so we can help free Chief Stahl, because I'm sure his wife would like to see him at some point. And in case you forget what that website is, how many people picked up one of these and have no idea what it is? Bright! You're like, okay, they gave me a gift. Don't know what to do with it. I'm going to take it home and give it to the kids. And they'll probably thank you because, as you will see, if you take this and this, they do this. And while you're there, if you take a little picture of this little QR code down here, it will take you directly to the city's Shop Local website. So if you forgot the shoplocal.maricopa-az.gov, just take a picture of this. It'll take you right to the Shop Local website where you can upload your receipts between now and to help free. And we have to raise. Gosh, y'all are paying attention. Great. So there's more information about the Shop Local program and other city programs and services on the city's website. So please visit the website often for the latest news and information. Again, thank you for being here. Good night. Be safe. And the magistrate will make sure that you can get home safely if you drive slowly.